art can be like so small. It's just like these little idea seeds. It isn't art until it's shared. It has to be expressed. And it doesn't have to necessarily be like you made art or you wrote a book or you made anything. It's just sometimes it has to be interpersonal for it to exist. It's like, It's not there in one person.
Hi, I'm the goo inside the chrysalis, Phoebe.
And I'm Jacques.
And welcome to Do You Ever Feel Like?
Where we ask the questions that everyone's thinking and no one's answering.
And today on the podcast, we have a guest. We have our first guest of the season? Question mark? Question mark.
Phoebe, you are like, we are in a new season.
I don't know.
This is the first guest.
Okay.
We had many seasons.
Behind the scenes. None of this matters.
None of it matters. But yet we keep saying things like the first guest of something as if it matters.
Okay, well, it's the first guest from since we are back.
Yes, back from break guest, fall guest. Like, yes.
I'm crying. Well, here we are. Yes, we had Alexis Rockley on the pod. Such a great, I mean, I always love our guests. I always think, shout out to our guests for real. They're the real ones. They sign up
whether
for
we remember you
ride.
coming or not.
But like to show up to this where clearly we've been recording for not even 2 minutes yet and we've lost our minds.
Yes.
I don't know. I just like really appreciate people that are like, oh yeah, sure, I'll respond to your email. But yes, we had Alexis Rockley on the pod, and Alexis was super generous with her sharing and just like really great conversation. We get into, we get into butterflies. We get into I don't know, like how to be weird and like how to destroy systems of oppression. Quite simply. Quite simply.
Yeah, I just love when I meet people that are just like, they're just not trying to do anything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, are just like themselves, the whole the thing's cohesive. You're not surprised when you get there, you know?
Exactly. Yes. I feel so refreshed by that. And yeah, I like love when we talk to people that are just of the same kind of, we have a shared goal in mind for our existence.
A shared goal, a shared journey,
a shared idea of what it is we're trying to do on the planet, you know? Like, I think it always feels like, we talk about this, but always feels like a sense of like, okay, you know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was reassuring for sure, to me at least. Alexis wrote a book called Find Your Fuck Yeah, and it's great. We talk about it in the episode. You should go listen, buy, etc. Read the book, because it's a really great kind of first leap into a lot of Alexis's work. So
yes, and Alexis stayed. I wish I didn't stop record.
I know.
We had such a great conversation after I hit done. But I think like we were saying, it's just like, I don't know. Our guests, they come and they're willing to like create something together. So it was lovely. Alexis is lovely. We had a great conversation about exactly my what do we call this season? Where are we? What are we creating? Maybe we'll work to answer that question, but probably we never will. Oh, actually, we have some kind of like some news, some housekeeping news. Jacqueline and I have sealed the deal. I feel like hands across the world kind of moment. Like I want to reach through the screen, Jacqueline, and shake your hand right now.
Blood bond.
Yeah. Run through the forest.
You can cut that out.
Moon Knight. I'm not. I'm not. I actually make Jacqueline like swear oaths and pledges a lot, like under full moons. And she's like, is this some sort of like ritual? I'm like, shh, put this twig in your hair and howl with me. But Jacqueline and I have, I don't know, what do we call this? Okay. After over a year of the pod and business together, we've like finally launched our agency, Do You Ever Media. So you can go check us out on Instagram at Do You Ever Media to see what we've been up to. I don't know. What do you want to say about that?
Yeah. I mean, we're still kind of like, I feel like in the last like 2 months, we've been like slowly kind of getting this thing out into the world, and it's been great. I was like so freaked. We were both really freaked yesterday.
We were both really freaked. It's like that moment of creation. I was remembering when we were talking about Tracy Ellis. Is that who it is? Tracy Ellis Ross?
Yes, Tracy Ellis Ross. Yeah.
Who like that moment of like, oh, like I can, like we've like been jumping out of. Okay, so Tracy Ellis Ross has this like, what do you call it? What do you call it?
Tracy Ellis Ross was on a podcast interview and was talking about this idea of like being scared after you do the thing and like not really up to it or during it.
Yeah, it's like you get in the plane, you ride up to the summit, and then you like jump out of the plane and you fly through the stratosphere, and then you freak out when you're on the ground. And that is what Jacqueline and I were experiencing as we were like, all of the hard work is already done. We've been like up late, which are things we don't do, working late, and like putting in the time, doing the thing, and then like then we're ready to hit go, and it's like, oh, what if I'm scared now?
I know.
And we've put out how many episodes of the podcast, we've done how many workshops, we've done how many like how many clients have we already done
like client work. Yeah, exactly. And we're like, this is not real. What if they met? Like, I don't know. I just wanted to speak to that a little bit because I think that is such a universally known feeling, right? Yeah. And like, especially if you're an artist and like you're making something and it feels like yours, you know, behind the studio wall or like in the rehearsal room, and it feels like yours. And then when it becomes art, right? When it becomes, related to our conversation with Alexis had amazing things to say about this. When it becomes art, when it becomes like an exchange, is when it like feels different, like the texture of the thing changes. And I think that is like where my fear was, is I was like, oh no, like all of this in my brain is like totally perfection, right? Like in my brain, it's like not even perfection, but it like feels great, right? And then and then it's like when it has to be combined with someone else's perception of reality, it's like scary, you know?
Yep. So
but everyone has been so awesome though.
Yes, everyone's been so awesome. It's been really sweet. I guess I guess maybe like the lesson here is like, oh, it is really nice when you share your work. And even as people who have been doing this for a long ass fucking time, like professionally for a long ass fucking time, I don't think you get.
It doesn't get easier.
It doesn't get easier. I think you just kind of have to like reason with yourself and like kind of sort through what is, I don't know, what's trust and like what's, you know, gut feels and like what is you just maybe being well, I'll speak for myself, being a little bit of a lazy baby. And I'm like, I've done the thing 99.99999%, and I'm just gonna stop now.
I don't want to do the last 1%.
I'm sleepy instead.
That's real. That's really real. Like, and and I think like it doesn't get easier. I've been trying to really find this balance. Again, we talk about this in the pod, like this idea of, I've been really trying to find this balance of like, what is like intuition, trust, gut, right? Like follow this thing that I believe in so wholeheartedly. I believe in what we are doing, like so strongly, like so significantly. I'm so committed to the chaos of this thing.
Mhm.
Like, and also like understanding that it's not like not everyone is going to be ready, not everyone is going to be understanding, not everyone's going to get it, not
Mhm.
everyone's going to like be about you,
No.
you know? I feel like that for me, like when I go to like press send for stuff, I have to always remind myself like, who is this really for, right?
Yeah.
Like, and like it's okay if they're not about you.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be about you.
No, and
Not everyone's
that's
going to
not
like this thing, whatever.
yeah, and I like not interested in
Yeah.
that
That's not the
story.
point.
No,
Yeah.
that's not the point. The point is not status quo.
Right.
Yes, very much exactly what we talked with Alexis about as well. So I think maybe I
So
will
we'll
go back
shut
and
up.
listen to this episode.
I know. I'm like,
Well, we're gonna shut up, but we're not gonna shut up because you enjoy, I don't know, maybe almost an hour of us. So to introduce Alexis Rockley, she, her, is a queer and neurodivergent writer, evidence-based edutainer, and neuro-affirming life work coach obsessed with translating the science of self-compassion and anti-grind productivity into practical resources for people who grew up on the internet.
Whew.
Us. She's the author of Find Your Fuck Yeah, Stop Censoring Who You Are and Discover What You Really Want, the host of the voicemail style podcast Call Me When You Get This. Her work has been featured in Upworthy, Soul Pancake, Attention, is that how you say that publication? Attention, The Washington Post, and more. Forever curious, she earned her Specialization Certificate in Positive Psychology from the University of Pennsylvania in 2019 and her Integrative Somatic Trauma Therapy certification from the Embody Lab in early 2023. Alexis and I almost went to school together on a digital
I was going to say,
plane.
were you in the same cohort?
No. I have a different certificate from same thing from the Embody Lab. Shout out the Embody Lab.
When she's not nerding out on liberation psychology, sociology, and somatics, she can be found rescuing plants from Ikea and throwing one-woman dance parties in her kitchen.
My kind of gal. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage, Alexis Rockley. Thank you so much for coming on, Alexis. We have Alexis Rockley on the pod today, who is our first guest of this season. So we really appreciate you coming to chat with us today. Oh yeah, thanks so much. With coffee in hand and everything.
Spilled coffee, to be specific.
Oh, that's like the worst. That's so upsetting. That's the worst kind.
It had to happen because I was doing other things today, so my coffee would spill. So I think it's the way it is.
I don't have the emotional fortitude for spilled coffee like most of the time. And it's usually like if I can just have this, everything else will run fine. But like spilled coffee, like fallen lunches, like they just do not go well for me.
I end up just like heckling the scene by myself. Like when the coffee spilled, I was like, oh no, okay, no, that's fine. Okay, cool. That's definitely right. It's like I turn into the sarcastic driver, it's just, I don't know. It's very strange.
I was going to ask you exactly that. Like, I was going to ask you to introduce yourself, but maybe this is a better get to know you question of like, I don't know, in those moments as somebody who coaches people through like the stuff in life, how is your reaction to the stuff? And like, I don't know, your emotional fortitude when the coffee spills, the proverbial coffee spills.
When the proverbial coffee spills, I feel like it really depends on the day. I mean, that's the main thing that comes up a lot with my clients is like the kind of emotional reactions we have are completely contingent on our current resources, like internally and externally. So like if I'm having a really wild week or month, or I'm really drained, or it's a particular week of my cycle that month, or I happen to be in that week of my cycle and it's this particular season of my life, then I'm more likely to have like a certain type of emotional response than another time. So today when the coffee spilled, I was like, lol, like, okay, of course it did. Haha, find a towel, wipe it up, soak my clothes later, figure it out. But, it just depends. Depends on the day. I think it's the more compassion, like the more self-compassion I practice, the less stressed out I am. But I also have tons of like, intersecting privileges that make it possible for me to just have self-compassion be the reason I'm less stressed. So,
yeah. Oh, that's such a nice answer to the question. I'm going to remember that the next time my coffee spills.
I would love to know. We would love to know. Who are you? What do you do in the world? How do you define yourself? How do you talk about yourself?
I have a big, stupid smile on my face because how I define myself changes so often that every time I finally, I'm like, this is what I do and who I am, I'm like, damn, that's already out of date. So as of today, currently, I would say that I am a queer and neurodivergent writer. I am what I call a neuro-affirming coach, which is a made-up word that's trying to help describe a very real set of sciences. I help people through my training in positive psychology, liberation psychology, and somatic psychology. But the basic is I try to help people figure out how they like being alive by asking them reflective questions that then help them change little things that they can control about their lives so it's less horrific to be a person, because it's really hard to be a person. So that's my primary day job right now. I'm a writer, as I said. And I also think of a lot of what I do on the internet as like edutainment. I teach workshops and classes and make videos. And really, I'm just trying to ask questions that like challenge our current concepts of personal growth, because I think we're heading in a really weird direction as a society with personal growth culture. It's not great. So if I'm going to be inside it and be someone who happens to have a self-help book and be a coach, like there's so many ways to make fun of what I do that I'd rather be inside and like poke holes in this like weird wellness complex that's going around, and try to ask questions that challenge the capitalist versions of happiness. So that's how I describe me.
Love that. I love that. And I love the caveat of that's how I describe me today. Or maybe right now.
For now.
Maybe I'll ask you again. I'll ask you again at the end of the this episode. This without like talking about all of my stuff all of the time. I love the way that you speak about I'm gonna call it like just like overarching wellness, but like what do we even call it at this point? What do we even call this industry at this point?
But I'm calling it the personal growth industrial complex.
It's totally the personal growth industrial complex. It's like I remember working at my first job was at a bookstore when I was a teenager, and I remember restocking the self-help section one day and thinking it was like such a sad, small, depressing corner of the bookstore, and I would like you could always see like the sobbing women head to the back and the like divorced men, and they would huddle with their little self-help book, and like it was like such a scene. It really stuck out in my mind as a teenager as well. Like I could paint you a picture of the self-help section 15, 20 years ago. And it's like, I went to the same bookstore again recently that I worked in. And I was like, oh my God, this is like easily 10 times the size. And it's,
half the bookstore.
It's
probably.
half the bookstore. It's half the bookstore. And it's, as somebody who's like both obsessed with it and loves to like poke holes and like, yes, kind of works inside it at the same time. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This is so odd. But I guess my question is for you is like, in this, this role that you've found yourself in as somebody who can kind of like have fun, poke holes, how has that, I don't know, I guess like, have you gotten like any pushback from that, or I don't know, even like pushing yourself to move through those things? Like, I don't know, is there any kind of like internal dialogue? Like, oh, maybe I should be showing up a certain way. I don't even know what the question is. It's something like that in there.
I think I get what you're asking. I mean, I would say that I haven't gotten a ton of public pushback because I'm just not famous enough yet. And I'm sure that if I suddenly, go viral a certain number more times or someone gets interested, that will change. I think the pushback that I experience right now is the internal, the questioning that my past self would have called imposter syndrome, but I know better because imposter syndrome is made up and it's a racialized thing too. I know that I have the internal questioning of like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing with this platform? Like, I need to be really careful because there are so many things about me that helped me get to a place where I can talk about these topics, where people are following me on social media. I know that the way that I come across, I also understand like why my book got made when it got made.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the internal pushback is like, have I had enough people in my life check in with me and make sure that I'm not drinking my own Kool-Aid, right? Because like I'm here looking at the industry I'm inside of and going, well, we're heading in the direction where we're describing health as like healthism, like mental health and happiness is like this sort of moral purity right now that we're all trying to achieve. And that's like the direction of eugenics. Like historically, that's never a good thing.
Yep.
So I'm looking at this and I'm like writing about it and I'm asking questions and all that. But I also need to make sure that like the people in my life are asking me questions to make sure I'm not believing my own shit in a way that's harmful. Like that's, to me, success would be experiencing as much joy as possible while causing as little harm as possible. So that would be that's what I'm looking for when I'm in this space. Cause it's weird to be a writer and a coach and to also know there's so much wrong about it in this industry right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, I have much to say. I wonder, Jacqueline and I both have our kind of own experiences with neurodivergence. And I kind of, I really see it in myself as a superpower. And it kind of has to be a superpower for me at this point in my life because I've spent, decades it not feeling that way or being told the alternative. And I still, when I speak about my experience, I still have a lot of people saying to me like, well, it's not like that for everybody, or like this kind of caveat of like, we all can't access these things. Coach, I really love Natalie Miller. She always asks like, we exist at choice and like what agency do we have in this particular moment? Like what choices do we have? We don't have choices about everything, but like whether or not the coffee spills, we don't really have a choice over, but like how we react, it can be a choice. Where's the thread? I was talking about neurodivergence and it's in action right now. I guess like, how do you show up as somebody who, as I like to call it, like I show up as my freak self. How do you show up as your freak self in a world that's not necessarily, I don't know, loving and like accepting of that all of the time?
Yeah. I think I'm still figuring out how, like constantly. Yeah. I mean, even the way I describe it, like I've always felt weird and I've always felt like I would never be cool. And I've always, like, there's always been ways where I knew I didn't quite fit or like I was really good at something in school, but really bad at something else. And so until I had the vocabulary of neurodivergence, I didn't think of things as the way I think of them now. So I think of it as like practicing unmasking in public.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, unmasking is like the opposite of what I was doing before, which was very intuitive. Before I was reading the room and then deciding who I was based on the people in that room, based on the energy, like trying to, I understand it now as I was trying to keep myself safe because of my lived experiences as a little kid. Yeah. But there's an element of performance that goes into certain roles we have with each other in society. And performance is fun if you've consented to it. But if you feel forced to, if you cannot be yourself safely in a situation, then we mask. And I think there's so many different words for this, right? In neurodivergence, it's masking. If we're talking about a racialized situation, we're talking about code switching. We're talking about performing in that particular way. If it's a fight or flight situation, we might be talking about appeasement, where someone is behaving in a way at people pleasing. They're like trying to make this other person feel at ease. And it's a tool of like, I need to be safe. This isn't cool. So there's so many ways to not be ourselves, and for good reason, that I think when we say things like we need to figure out how to be our authentic selves, when we write self-help books that are about that, when we read books that are about that, when we talk about this on TikTok, like all of it's true, but it's also a cliche because none of us know what world we could possibly be in where it would be safe to be ourselves. Because everybody has some version of, well, my real self isn't welcome here. Even the people who have the identities, who hold the most power, still feel like they can't be themselves, even though we're walking around making it hard for other people to be themselves. So it's a daily practice of what would I genuinely what would it feel like for me to like respond authentically to my own nervous system right now, which sounds weird, but like that makes sense to me. So for example, in this setting, I don't know y'all, I just met you, but in prior to this conversation, I could feel the feeling of like, okay, should I perform now? Should I like go put on the show? Because it's a conversation, it's recorded, it's a podcast. And I had to like do the mental gymnastics of like, okay, no, take a deep breath. What would make you more comfortable? What would make you 1% more comfortable? What if you actually knew that somehow like, you know, these people, even though you don't know these people, like those little decisions help me regulate, help me calm down. But I honestly think it's situation to situation.
I love that performance is only fun if we consent. Ooh.
Yeah. A lot of what Phoebe and I do is kind of, I would say, wrapped around that idea in some ways. Like we're kind of challenging a lot of this stuff. But I think like in what we make, we're like kind of, I don't know, like navigating this space, this line of like performance and reality, or like performance and like self-acceptance, right? Or like performance, like, and I think what you know, you started by saying edutainment, and I think previously you've called yourself an edutainer, which I think is really interesting. I don't know, like if we just say this is all not real, like if we say like this is all a performance, like there's something kind of comforting in that, right? But then we're also dealing with the real truth of the matter, which you've spoken to, that like there are people with lived experiences that can, you know, can't really say that, right? Like can't kind of fully buy into that because it is an unsafe place to live in, right? So like we try to be as thoughtful around that as well. There is this kind of I don't know, it's like I wish we could just all say this isn't real and this is a performance, but like we can't. Does that make am I getting there?
Total sense.
You know what I mean? I
think when you start, for me, I'm saying you as if it's true for you, but for me, like when I started to consciously pay attention to what felt off about certain roles in my life, certain expectations I had for myself, expectations other people had for me, like in the first set of careers I had, right? My first fancy pants, important career. Who am I supposed to show up as? When I start paying attention to it, you start noticing what feels wrong. And then you need to find language for how you describe what's wrong. And for me, I am constantly aware, and maybe this is my neurodivergence, of people using a conversation to perform their status instead of having the conversation. And like the elbowing that happens inside of a conversation with someone where you're like, oh, you're not really here right now. You're trying to show me that you're smart, or you're trying to show me you're in charge, or you're trying to tell me you're powerful, or, and I think for some people, for me, that might be a revelation because all of my other identities have kept that secret from me, right? My being a middle-class American white woman who looks able-bodied, although I have some disabilities, like, I don't have to notice. I didn't have to be conscious of the performance until it happened in my like personal life where I was like, oh, I can't be my real self. I have to whatever. But like, you know, in talking with one of my friends who's a Black woman, she's like, this is never off. Like it's just always, it's just like background noise for me. Like I'm always aware of this. Right. So in the same way that you talk with women and they're like, well, I've got why do you carry your keys like that? Of course, we all know what it means to carry your keys like in the middle of your fingers. Like I get it. Like these are things you know if it's part of your life. So I think it's meaningful for us to point out, like, this is all made up. This is all, we invented this. And we could do something else with it. I think that's the thing I find exciting is like, I think it's Adrienne Marie Brown in Pleasure Activism. Yeah, Pleasure Activism, who said, we're living inside the imagination of a European white man from like a long time ago. Like it's all made up, but like, it has consequences because all these years later, we're inside of this version of society and we could do something different. So when you pointed out the fakeness, when you point out the performance, there's an opportunity for us to be like, do we want to keep going? Those of us who have some power, could we change it? You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of thing. That's what I think.
I think one of the like most what's the like in that reaction of saying like this is all a performance, you know, people have reactions to those things, and definitely one part of that is like, you know, what do you mean like oppressing people really benefits me, like this is like nice for me, like like what else could we possibly imagine? But I think in that like this world that we've constructed for ourselves, we're told that, you know, creativity is for some and not for others. And like our creative brains are like, can't imagine a new world because we don't have that like muscle built in a way where, I don't know, like play and imagination is like no, this is all made up. Like, what do you want to make up now? It's just like way too far of a leap for people. And you kind of talk about that, I think in your book, but also online, about like finding your art in the world. And I love the way that you use that word, because I feel I can walk down the street and make art, you know, and by paying attention to the tulips, and well, it's no more tulips right now, but like actually the like leaves changing colors, like just like the very edges of them, like that to me is art. And it's so, but it's, I don't know, it's like, I feel like it's kind of weird for people to imagine still, and I really believe that everyone is an artist, but I'm kind of curious as how you not just encourage folks, but like in your life, how you create your art.
I think of art as sort of like the result of creativity when it's shared. Like, I think that's probably why a lot of us associate art with like types of media. Like it's a painting, it's a sculpture, it's music, it's writing. But I think of it more like it's connected to change. Like everything comes back to change. Like to me, creativity and art is something everyone can access because every human has the capacity to connect new dots and to make new connections and to make change happen. And I think that art is like, or at least today, again, my definitions will change. I think today, art is the intentional planting of an idea seed, like having a seed of something, and then you share it with other people, and then that thing becomes something else. Like it's not yours anymore when you share it with other people. Like even if you want, it feels important to you. Once you put something out, once you share it in a conversation, once you write that song, it belongs to the other people who are engaging with it, and it becomes something else. And I think that's meaningful because we keep forgetting that the whole point of existing is relationships. Like we're all trying to figure out how to be happy, and like the whole thing is like being connected to one another. And I think artists, when they describe themselves that way, and people who are practicing art in daily life are like finding ways to point at connection and say, this thing brings us closer together. Or some artists are saying, this is what's driving us apart. Has anyone noticed? Or this is the status quo and it's like this for me. Can we do something about it? So I think art can be like so small. It's just like these little idea seeds, but it isn't art until it's shared. It has to be expressed. And it doesn't have to necessarily be like you made art or you wrote a book or you made anything. It's just sometimes it has to be interpersonal for it to exist. It's like, it's not there if more than one person is involved.
I love that. I love idea seeds. It's like, I mean, that metaphor is so lovely, you know, something that you can like tend with other people too. Like, oh, look at the plant I grew.
Yeah. Cause like, I think it's true for us too. Like we're the product of our environments. Like like one of my favorite metaphors ever is like, a gardener doesn't look at a struggling plant and go, wow, that plant doesn't want it bad enough. Like what a lazy plant, you know, like that's stupid. The gardener's like, what's going on with the conditions this plant is trying to grow in? Too much water? Not enough water. So like when I think about the gardening thing, it's like, we're so hard on ourselves in our creativity. We're so hard on ourselves in our relationships. We're like, I want this so bad, or I care about this thing, or should be easier for me. It's like, no, it's not. Look at the context you're in. So I think like the struggles we have to be put in context. It's the only way to understand why it's hard. And I think the art we make has to be put in context. It doesn't exist unless we're sharing it with each other because it grows, it changes its shape when you share it. It's like it's a little garden.
Yeah.
Ugh, I love that. Audience.
Ooh, you know, Phoebe and I get this question all the time in our work, or we get this like feedback, which is, I'm not creative. And so What is that? What would you say that is then? I mean, we've said a lot of it already, right? But what would, Alexis, the coach, say that is, right?
Mhm.
Of why we feel like we can't access that, right?
Yeah. I mean, this all my answers are going to be systemic today, I guess. But
I mean,
I think the reason that
if the elephant is pink, let us point to it.
Let us call it pink.
Let's name
Yes.
it. Yeah. I think the reason that a lot of us don't feel creative is because we have been thoroughly and aggressively told and taught there is no room for creativity. Because creativity isn't copy paste. Creativity is something shapeshifts. You meet someone and they share an idea with you, and that becomes a new thing because your experience plus their experience together is oh shit, that's really interesting. Or I never thought about it that way. All the change that happens from us being like these little ants passing information to one another and getting new things built because of it. And I don't think that as of right now, we've built a culture or a society that champions creativity. I think we love the aesthetics of creativity. I think we love the aesthetics of a transformation. We love a before and after. We love a look what I made. Here's this thing. It's finished. It's shiny. But I don't think we actually respect the act of transformation or the process of change or creativity. Because if we did, we would let a lot of people be themselves, and there wouldn't be quite so much aggressive control of certain identities in our culture. So I think it makes sense people don't feel creative because on top of that, there's the day-to-day. Creativity requires a sense of internal safety and resources. I can't access my own creativity if I'm really drained, I'm really overwhelmed, I'm going through a bunch of stuff, I'm unsupported. So I can't just tap into it, right? It's a thing that comes with resources. So if your day-to-day is exhausting, if your day-to-day is one thing to the next thing to the next thing, you're constantly working, you're constantly going, just trying to exist in the system we built.
Yeah.
You won't be able to tap into creativity that easily, right? So it has become a luxury in that not that many of us have that much resource and support. So it's not that we cannot be creative. It's that we have to create the conditions that support people's creativity.
Right.
So that more people can be, because then we would be building different worlds.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's making I always think I worked in I don't even know how to I had a 9-to-5 creative job for a short period of my life, which I guess 5 years, short but long. And I think it's so funny. It's so interesting to me when we put creativity in a context of manufacturing, which whatever we could talk about. This is a different thing in my mind, but creativity requires such vulnerability. And then we put it in this container of okay, be creative, but not too creative because we don't want to weird anyone else out in the next boardroom.
Yes.
And then we do the same thing to people, be creative, have a nice little idea, go live your life and be freedom, but not too free. Because we don't want to, that haircut is a bit upsetting to the neighbors down the road, and their poodle will bark at you in a strange way. So it's this trap that we put people in, I feel, of like you said, I think I do really agree. We live in a world that loves the outcome. I like to think, and this is a bit dark of me, but it's I really feel like our world values art, but not the artist that made it. And that could be, and when I use art, I mean being an artist, I mean human. And we love the output of people, but we don't love people. It's a very, oh gosh, what an interesting morning we're all three of us are having.
Listen, I love to take things down a dark and twisty path because then we can get to the joy afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is,
yeah,
but it's so damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing, right? Okay, so we're in the dark and twisty path. I don't like asking this question, but I'm going to ask it. What do we do, Alexis?
I love it because if I knew.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, I have no idea. I think the current thing that other people have gifted me, because again, none of these ideas are mine. They came from other people's idea seeds that grew from me. We're observing what we're like as a collective, and we're like, ew, why are we like this? This is rough. And then we're constantly championing individual solutions where we're like, I need to be better at self-care. I need to take care of my mental health. I should focus on blah, blah, blah. I think we need to do something in between where we work on our internal, we learn how to speak the language of our body so that we're not constantly dysregulated and therefore flinging our dysregulation at someone else, which causes all kinds of harm and problems. There's like individual work we need to do. We need to practice creativity as individuals. We need to express that. But then we need to do it so that we can better make it safer for other people to be themselves. So if we're like, wow, we're made this world where no one can actually express themselves, then I think one of the first steps is like, okay, you're going into that meeting. How can you be a little weirder than you're comfortable with so that other people can watch you and be like, oh, right. Yeah. Yes. Why are we all doing this? Why are we all performing? But it takes courage and it is not for everyone, right? Because the person who's the most at risk in that meeting doesn't have the most luxury to do the weirdest thing. So the person who's like, oh no, I'm uncomfortable. We have to like double check if our discomfort is actually danger, which is like a huge thing for me. Is like my body thinks discomfort is danger, but that's because I'm a white lady and I was trained to do that. Discomfort is not danger all the time. So like we can practice being weirder and like make other people feel free to do so. We can practice inviting the artist and being like, tell me more about why you made this. Tell me more about this thing you made. Not, wow, I love this thing so much all the time, right? So I think it's like the individual level can be like making it weirder for other people so that weirder in a good way, so that more people can practice it. And hopefully we're going to get to a place where we're all just so grossed out by the system that we've set up that we can start heading in a new direction.
I think this kind of links to this conversation around like professionalism. Because like right now what's happening on the internet, because I feel like, right, we live in two worlds. We live in the world of like everyday lives and then like the world of the internet, is that to be an entrepreneur, to be a creative entrepreneur, to have your own destiny, to have your own thing, to like, I'm a this and it's packaged and it's branded and it's, you know what I mean, is like the way of the future, maybe the way of this new world in some way, kind of, you know what I mean? Be a little weirder in the meeting. Okay, be a little weirder in the meeting so that we can all be weird together, so that we can build a big weird world, so that we can all have our own like little weird brands in this weird world. Like it gets a little like it's like, and so Sonia Renee Taylor talks about this all the time, right? This like, what do we do with like right now and then like the building of the new world? You know what I mean? And like, so something like be a little weirder in the meeting is like a great thing for like the right now. But it's just, this feels very like confusing, I think, right? For people to, for me to hold, right? Like as I'm navigating around. And I can imagine, like you started this conversation with, right now I'm this, and I'm doing this in my business, and I'm doing this thing, you know what I mean? It's like, I can imagine that there's like some kind of payoff we're hoping for, or like, or that I guess I should say, again, I hope for, that I'm like, oh, this will make sense now that we're all in this weird world or something, and I'll feel safe again, or like, it'll be worth it to be weird in the board meeting. And I don't know what to do with that a lot of the time. This is not a question. This is just like, I'm assuming I'm not the only one feeling this way. And there's something about the internet, right? Like the effects of the creative, right? The after of the making, the pretty of the thing that is doing this to us, right? It's like, I'm not good because I don't run my own business, and I'm not good because I'm weird, and I'm not weird, right? And I'm not good because I can't say, hi, I'm so-and-so and I run my own thing. What is that, Alexis? Like, can you speak to that at all? And like, what do you, like, how do you personally kind of navigate that? And do you know what the hell I'm talking about? Because I think you do. And, I think Phoebe does.
I think like being a person in the internet age we're in right now, it just feels like we're like 300 years from now, they're going to look back and be like, that was a weird time. Interesting choices made all around.
I really feel like my grandkids will come to me and be like,
Mhm.
what the fuck were you doing? It's like, you know,
What?
people smoking cigarettes in airplanes or something
Yes,
like that.
it's
They're
very
like,
the Mad
what?
Men era. But on
What
the
is,
internet.
why were you doing that to your brains and each other? And I'll be like,
Yeah.
I know, we were insane. And we knew it was bad too. Like,
yes. I think what makes, okay, I'm forever the capitalist hot take machine. So I'm sorry, but like, I think it's weird because we're replicating the profitability in real life thing into the internet thing, right? So like, all of us have to exist, right? And we're in a weirder set of economies. Like, how do you make money when jobs are the way that they are now? A lot of us are like, well, I'm an artist and I'm not like a Renaissance guy in France, so I can't get a patron to pay for my livelihood, but I could maybe start a podcast and have a Patreon. Like, that's a thing I could do now, right? So there's like all these weird, the incentive to exist under capitalism requires we take our skill sets and our feelings and we put them on the internet in a lot of ways. Fine, we'll look back and laugh at this, how we did it. But I think like we're not totally conscious of the ways that we are branding ourselves internally. Like, I think we can laugh at the self-branding required to market yourself as I'm a graphic designer, you can trust me, right? Essentially that what we're doing is signaling with nonverbal language. These are ways you can trust me. My website looks like this. It's not the 1991 like style, unless it's like ironic, in which case, wow, really fun, tongue in cheek. I guess I can trust you. Like, there's so many little cues.
But that is saying something too, right? Like that is saying something too.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
So like, there's all these little ways that we understand. We're signaling you can hire me. You're signaling you can like me. We're signaling you can trust me because we understand these like nonverbal cues and we're using them online. And it's partially necessary because of capitalism and partially unnecessary because we also really want to belong and be liked. And so we're putting on these little shows. But like, we're internalizing the branding messaging, I think. And that's what is going to be embarrassing later, in my opinion. Like, an example would be the way we use identity language right now. Like, I describe myself as queer and neurodivergent. Cool. It's vocabulary. People who understand those words are going to be like, oh, I relate to you because I see the language. Yeah. But we're also doing this thing online where we're starting to describe our suffering in terms of diagnoses. And in order to relate to someone and say, I'm suffering, we have to say, I have this disorder. Are we sure that difference in a person is disorder? Are we sure about that? That's a weird choice to make. But because of the setup we have online and the way that we're talking about things, in order to relate to other people, we have to use this language and this vocab that puts us into these categories. So I feel like we're internalizing branding of being like, I am like this. I am the fun friend. So I can't go be weird and cry in front of these people. I can't change the vibe by saying this is making me uncomfortable. I'm the hardworking employee. So like, I can't not respond to this email at 11 p.m. Like, a lot of the stuff even 5 years ago that we were doing, we're like, that's dumb. Like, log off at 5 p.m. That's stupid. Don't do that. But there's like an internalized branding that's happening. And it's not just like, I have to perform my brand to get a job. That's true. But it's also this inside of like, who am I? What kind of guy am I? Like what
oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, everything is like, what kind of guy are you now?
Yes. Yes.
And you can use like products to signal it. Like, I'm the like, if I said like REI zipper windbreaker.
Done. Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, San Francisco tech guy. He's white. Sure. Got it. No problem. Like, there's all these little signals we're using, and it's fine because I think people communicate in signals, but also what does it mean when we're internalizing the idea we have to be a type of person instead of what humans are, which is constantly changing and transforming, and we need to be kinder to each other while we're doing that.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God, internal branding is like, makes me want to scream. Just a little short anecdote. I had a friend say to me the other day, she was like, is this normal to you? I was at a party the other day and somebody asked me, she was like, this is weird, right? Also, you know, being a woman in the world is like you have to, is this normal or am I overreacting? She was like, Somebody asked me what my attachment style was. That's like the second question they ever said. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty psycho in my opinion. That is a really strange thing to
I
ask
love
somebody
like,
after
to skip small talk. Let's go right to trauma.
Truly, truly. I was like, "What's your name and what's your attachment style?" Maybe we'll start putting it in our Tinder bios next. But I do think
that's totally already happening. No, I think that's been for a while. Yeah.
But I think that's something. I mean, it's like a mirror, like you had already said. It's a mirror of capitalism in a sense, where it's like, oh, what kind of guy am I, so that I can be packaged for my own self-understanding, instead of, and I catch myself doing it. It's like,
yes,
well,
exactly.
I am this way. I am this way. I freak out when my coffee spills, so I get to be a dysregulated freak wherever I go in the world, which is like not true. I could take a deep breath and like, oh my gosh, no, my internal branding is totally shifted. And I think that is, I agree. It's like lovely that we have this language that we can kind of signal to each other and I think find community in, right? But when we start at, I am this way. I mean, we catch on. Well, I'm a Sagittarius that does this, and maybe I could just be a little bit less reactive and I could still be a Sagittarius. Who knows?
It's like, I don't think we even need to stop using sort of categorization language necessarily as people, because like that's how we communicate. It's what humans do. I think it's totally chill. It's just when, like, I don't know about you, but this happens to me a lot. The compound emotions. So I get angry that I'm angry.
Yeah.
I get
ups.
I'm irritated that I'm irritated. I'm
scared, the guilt because I feel guilty.
Yes, I'm anxious that I'm anxious. And like compound emotions are so human and so normal, but they challenge our identities, our internal identities. So if like you identify as an anxious person, you might, because you've had tons of experiences where like you have reasons to be anxious, you might have a day where like everything's going really well and you feel calm and you're like, I can't even trust that. I can't. The rug's about to get pulled out from under me. Like, I can't trust this. Or on the flip side, there's like something positive happening in your life and, you don't trust the thing because you're not that kind of person. Like, I think we can challenge the internal branding that we've got going on by letting ourselves be more of a spectrum being of like, today I feel really strongly in this way and I'm expressing really strongly in this way, but it might change in a few weeks. And we need to give other people a lot more grace to not always be the same. Like, we can't have these really strong narratives. Like, I don't have a clear-cut story. Like, my life is not a good narrative. Like, I can make it a narrative, but that's because I'm like in hindsight. So if we feel like we're brands, then we're going to require ourselves to have like a clear-cut path from point A to point Z. And we're going to be mad at ourselves that we don't feel like we know where we're going and we're not consistent all the time. But like, we're not little machines and we're not brands. We can't be consistent. That's not our job to be consistent all the time. We're supposed to be constantly changing and adapting as people to our environments and try to cause as little as harm as possible while we do that. Not like forever be the same kind of person, the same kind of whatever. Like, I don't know. Consistency is a scam to me.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It's making me, I mean, you've already, like these mirrors of capitalism I like to think of everything in MLM terms, because that's what it feels like so much of the time, because it's like we're convincing each other to whatever, do the thing. Like, if I'm miserable, then you must be miserable with me. Like, buy in now. I don't know, kind of circling back around like this, working in the self-help world. How do I don't even know if I want to start my question this way. Okay, I'll start with a statement. I see in the world this kind of brand of self-help, again, mirroring capitalism, or being the best worker that you can be, actually. So it's all about getting the most out of yourself and other people around you. And what's the word I'm looking for? Like productivity and there's another word.
Self-optimization.
Yeah,
efficiency.
self-optimization. Yeah, yeah. I just think of like the Joe Rogans, whatever word Joe Rogan is using right now, that one.
Yeah.
Whatever like bald white men are doing to themselves, whatever that is,
Yeah.
gestures vaguely.
Biohacking.
Yeah, oh God, I can't.
Yeah.
What is biohacking?
I can't even. It's a whole thing. It's a trend. I'll just say it's a trend. It's a trend.
Jacqueline, it's exactly what you think it is. It's exactly what.
Okay.
Just like go there in your mind. It's that.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
It's like a hyper. It's really like it's the friend of the term self-care, but it's like that's too feminized, so it has to be hyper masculine. So it's biohacking.
Oh,
See what I'm saying? You're more making your
fascinating.
Body, they're the same. They have the same spiritual vibe of like,
okay,
do things for and to your body so that you can be the most efficient,
the best,
healthy, best version of yourself. Just two different ways of saying it.
Yeah, I'm wondering in this, and maybe this is kind of where I'm going. I'm like, okay, so we know if we kind of follow down like the self-care road that's laid out in front of us, we go to the bookstore. It's Chapters in Canada. Well, it's Indigo. If we go to Barnes and Noble and we like go to the self-help section and we like pick up our stack of books, they're like, okay, I'm going to be the best I can be so that I can get the most out of my day, and be really strong and drink green smoothies. And I don't know what people do in their days. I'm cosplaying being a person in the world right now. Yeah. Someone told me that they went to the gym at 5 a.m. yesterday. I was like, oh my God, I don't know. Who are you? Anyway, I'm being that person. I like do the most out of my day. And then I come home and I like get the most out of my like 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And I like it's like maximizing.
Yes,
I maximize. Yeah. If I do that, I think I see that as just like I said, another road down the world it's just it's the white man imagination. Like I'm just maximizing the white man imagination for my benefit. If instead we go down this path of finding fun, being weird in the meeting, I don't know, what are the other solutions? Looking at leaves on trees and holding our like sister's hand in, so that we can be a little bit weirder together and feeling a little bit less afraid together. What new world, this is the question I want, what new world do you think we can dream up together?
I like that question. I'm taking a second to answer it because I feel like
such a simple idea though.
I know.
What do you mean?
So chill, so low key. I think my response to that is like a lot of people have actually described the world we could build together in pieces of art that they've made, like books that they've written or movies they've created or albums or ideas that spread. I think that if we like all kind of shifted gears to thinking about things as being interconnected, right? Like what Indigenous people have been saying for literally ever, that we're already inside the changing world that we want it to be. Like it is currently a dumpster fire when you're trying to change the system as an individual. But when you realize everybody is having like some version of the same, like, ew, why is it like this feeling that you are? And that all of you have relationships, you have a sphere of influence, you're all connected to like a bunch of different people. When we realize that things are interconnected, we can start literally today making it a less garbage place by like the way that we greet someone, the text where we check on our friend, in a way that isn't super vague, like, hey, how are you? But in the like, hey, I remember you said this a couple weeks ago. This was important to you. What's going on with that? And they don't respond. You're like, fine, I'll just send you memes until you tell me to stop because I love you. There's like ways we can do this where I think we get really binary because that's our go-to right now, to be like, it's either everything's fine and gradually to the top, or this whole place is trash, burn it down. And I think there's truth a little bit, like tiny seeds of truth in both, but actually it's happening right now. Like we're not just building to a better world with like a starting point. We're not the starting generation and then it'll get better. It's been going. We just have such short timelines that we think it couldn't possibly happen, but it's happening. We just have to like treat our day-to-day choices, I think, more like they're valuable. Like my favorite tweet ever, and I wish I knew who said this, but I saved the screenshot of it, was everybody worries in time travel movies that when you go back in time, the smallest thing you're going to do will just ruin history, right? Completely change history. But nobody applies that to the forward concept. Like, what if the smallest little thing that you did completely changed history, completely changed the timeline? Like, if we let ourselves scale down, we understand the problem is huge, but we realize that like our day-to-day lives are just relationships anyway. How can we be better in our relationships? How can we be less self-centered in our relationships? How can we be less performative in our relationships? Like if we do that, the whole thing is relationships. It'll change, it'll shift. And a lot of the people who don't want that to happen are shifting into a different state of power than they had before.
Yeah.
Because of the way the human body works and aging. And like, we need to not like gloat over that and be like, cool, the progressive Zoomers will take over. Like, great, yes, but also we don't need to be ageist about it. But like, there is a shift happening. It's constantly happening. So when we're too binary, we get overwhelmed really quick, and then we go back to like, and how do I feel good today? It's like, yeah. How the world looks better is the way we treat each other in the day-to-day relationships, I think.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Is there any like, I don't know, does anyone have any final words? Final words.
I want to know what Alexis is obsessed with right now. In this world where we must all be obsessed with something and where we must all, you know, be reading a book and making it our personality. Like what? Like
we get our joy where we can get it.
Yes. What are you obsessed with right now, if anything?
I just found out about this concept coined by Dina Murray, who recently passed, called monotropism, which is a theory of humans and the brain that describes what we would describe as neurodivergence, autism, ADHD, but it describes it without pathologizing people. And I've never read a more like, oh, there it is description of my experience of neurodivergence and of other people than in reading Dina Murray's work and some of the other people who are connected to her that I can't remember all their names. It's the idea is that some people have intense interest about a few things. And that's how their brains, it's like a tunnel of intense interest, like focus is really, really narrow. And other people have, again, spectrum, have a light interest about a lot of things. And people who have more monotropic focus are more likely to be obsessed with things, to nerd out about stuff, to get really, really into one thing, and to struggle if they're not interested in something. Like if you're not into it, it's like, it's not happening. I can't care about it. So I wish I could be motivated, but I can't be motivated. And why is it like that? And their theory is also that like, maybe that's part of why filtering is so hard. If all of your resources are going towards being able to pay attention to this thing, then interruptions would be upsetting for your nervous system. Like disruptions to that would be upsetting. Like lots of voices all happening at the same time, loud sounds, weird textures, like those things would throw you off because your body has filtered all of its attention to this one place and there aren't a whole bunch of other filters. So I'm obsessed with it because I just found out about it, and because I love finding out that somebody devoted their life to describing a pattern they saw, and everybody around them was like, that's dumb and you don't know what you're talking about. And it wasn't until years later that people were more open to it. Again, idea seeds. And I'm sad that that's what happened with Dina Murray's work, but I'm grateful that she wrote it and she shared it with people and that she put it out there, because now I can find it and be like, oh, I actually relate to that. This feels true to me. This feels like a better way of looking at things. Not that I have a social deficit, but that I want a depth of a conversation with a person, not a shallow performative status thing in a conversation. I want depth. So that's what I'm obsessed with right now. Also, what I found out about butterflies and caterpillars.
What did you find out about butterflies and caterpillars?
I thought that I thought that they like hibernated and then became a caterpillar became a butterfly by hibernating, but they don't do that. It's very gross. Like caterpillars go into their cocoon and then they digest themselves. They break their body into goop, and then the goop has cells in it that have been there since before they were even caterpillars that know that at a certain point in time, those cells are supposed to form the structures of butterfly parts. And I just feel like that's the best metaphor for change, because change is never like, ooh, before and after. It's always like, I think I'm dying inside. I think that I no longer exist.
Yeah.
I am goop.
Yes. I am goop.
So I love that metaphor because I can use it when I'm like, wow, I hate change. I'm uncomfortable. Well, yeah, I'm digesting my own
You're goop.
previous self.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, one, I'm going to go and not get anything done for the rest of the day because I'm going to go and read about Dina Marie and monotropism.
Monotropism. There's also
Gorgeous.
a monotropism assessment that you can take that is not a test for autism or ADHD, but it's just for monotropism. And there's a coder, like a web developer who turned the academic white paper assessment into a real test you can take online for free. It's like not data collection.
You're going to ruin my day. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Fascinating. And yes, I do love turning to nature and being like,
oh my gosh, yes.
If we could all just be tulips, I think that's like trust and information.
And with that being said,
yes,
go check out Alexis's Substack, because Alexis just wrote about this in an essay.
I did, because I'm obsessed with it. And
I loved that essay. I was like, yes, because we don't, of course, right? We care about the after, like you were saying. We don't talk about the disgustingness that actually is happening between us all the time, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Our final question for you today, Alexis, and I'll ask you as well, Jacqueline. What have you changed your mind about lately?
I think I've changed my mind about how helpful science is in describing people. And what I mean is, I've started to notice that we are using science, this is evidence-based or this is based in science, as a cultural shorthand for don't look into it, you can trust me. Just don't worry about it. Scientific, don't worry about it. And I'm starting to see patterns in my own industry, which is like mental health adjacent, that we're describing people, as I mentioned, people who just have a difference of experience as biological difference. So I've changed my mind about people, the wisdom of saying that defending that someone is, for example, neurodivergence is like a brain wiring thing and not maybe an outcome of a whole bunch of experiences in someone's life, plus their genetics, plus other stuff. So I've changed my mind about the safety of science. And I'm looking at it more as it's made by people, which means it's faulty. There's so much history where science has done messed up stuff. So when I'm going through, I care a lot about things being evidence-based. I have more checkpoints in place now to think about, like, who wrote this paper, who wasn't included in the study, what was the framing, and what are we saying about people? Because science is shorthand for you can trust me, and I don't want to leverage that in a way that's a problem. It's like in the future. I want to try to be careful not to.
I literally love that. That's beautiful. Jacqueline, what have you changed your mind about recently?
This conversation has made me so interesting to talk to you now, Alexis, and like, I don't know, maybe I'll be in your DMs later after like reading your book, because like there's some, like, there is a change, obviously, like you were talking about, of like who you were when you were writing that book, right? And like what you were going through and like what you do now. Like there is an evolution that is very, you pay attention, right? Like to us as storytellers is very like evident here, right? And like I think this conversation has inspired me to like, what I've changed my mind about is like is doing the thing, like writing the book, making the thing, planting the idea seed, like doing it, like even if like a year from now there's a different answer, right? Or there's a different contribution, or there's a different thing to learn. I really needed to hear that today. And so that's what I've change my mind
I
about.
love
I'm going to
that.
go do the thing.
Yeah. Because it's
even
like,
if on the other side, you know, who knows?
yeah, it's scary to, I don't know, like every single thing I've ever done, I look back and cringe because I think like when you change, you go,
Yeah.
I
Is
think
that like
that's
not the
normal.
goal and like exciting and like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you don't feel a little cringe about the things you did before, then you haven't really changed. And like changing is like growing is good, I think. But it is scary to decide, okay, well, I'm obviously not going to like this in 2 years. So why would I put the work into sharing it? Or why would I be like vulnerable online and have this record of this thing I used to believe or think? And I think the meaning of it, the value to me currently is like, well, then we have a historical archive of what we were thinking at that moment in time, like for ourselves and also for history. Like this is a little artifact of what's going on culturally right now. And even if things that I said or things that you said are like, wow, that's weird. I don't think that way anymore in a year or 2 years or 3 years. Like, okay, but it's an artifact. It's true. It was a moment in time and we're always changing. So letting yourself do that is like, takes courage, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Alexis.
What have you changed your mind about?
Oh my goodness. I think to make it a little bit, no. Actually, this is what I changed my mind about. I have changed my mind about feeling the need to be hyper clear in my conversation all of the time, or feel the need to make sure somebody understands exactly what I'm saying if what I am saying is an expression of myself or passionate or just something I want to say and do. I don't need anyone else to get that. And I'm going to end that there for that exact reason. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Alexis. Anything that where do we go to get more Alexis?
So I think the most up-to-date recent stuff would be my Substack. So it's alexisrockley.substack.com. The Substack is called How to Like Being Alive ? Because the theory of the newsletter space is like, I wanted an answer to this question for a long time. It's what inspired all the research that went into this book, that Find Your Fuck Yeah, that came out in 2018. And now I just want to spend time with the people who have asked that question. And I want to think about like, why are we asking this question? Like, how come culturally we're all so obsessed with wanting to figure out how to like being alive? What does that mean about us? So I'm writing about the personal growth industry and also about energy budgeting, like, the concept of self-care where you're paying attention to your nervous system, but not making it your whole personality and needing to do a bunch of expensive things to care for your body, or making that a marker of purity and health. And I just also about feelings and change. It's a lot. It's kind of like in art, science, nerd, social psychology kind of feelings in there. So that would be the most recent thing. And also I host community events through that space. So I did a end of the month reflection meetup recently for people to go through like journal prompts to reflect on their month and to think about their intentions for the month ahead. And that was just for members of the community in Substack. So lots of stuff going on there if you want to hang out. And you can also check out my book and know that I wrote it 4 years ago and that I feel the same and differently about things that are in there.
Yes.
Both.
Cool.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
I mean, Find Your Fuck Yeah is I like, I think it's a really amazing entry point. And it's like, that doesn't make you, that's not like gross. Cause like we just talked about, right? Like there are so many entry points to this that is, and that's when I when I read it / listened to it, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is such a good appetizer.
Yes.
You made us a great appetizer.
Yeah. Think, I'm glad you look at it that way, because I think of it as a book for people who just realized that their whole life has been built around finding a purpose in their career. But if you've been like, oh no, I've always known that, your experience of that book and the debunking of like self-help myths through psychology, you'll be like, okay, cool. But if that feels new to you, or you're like in the, oh shit, this is what's going on, and I keep reading these other things, then your experience of that book will be different. So appetizing.
Totally. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thanks, Alexis.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying a little late too.
Oh, it's really cool.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had, the coffee and the tech issues. Why not?
Why
I'm
not?
really
The
glad
coffee
I
and the
could do it.
tech.
Yeah.
Coffee and microphones.
Mhm.
One day I will. No, I won't. One day I will not defeat
No.
that beast. I never will. Never mind. I don't even want to fight.
Yeah.
Put it, take it out.
Okay, bye. Thank you for listening to Do You Ever Feel Like?
Follow This Chaos wherever you get your podcasts.
Our artwork is by Simon Peng. Do You Ever Feel Like is produced by Jacqueline Wills.
And Phoebe Taylor. You can follow us on Instagram at doyoueverpod.
You can write to us at doyoueverpod@gmail.com. Okay, bye!
Bye!